All right, so welcome to the 2025 health event. This is Thrive in 2025. I'm your host, Dr. Ben Sweeney. So of those that I've not met, welcome. A lot of familiar faces. So today I want you to leave with an exact game plan and a strategy to get healthy, to lose weight, to get off medications, to get out of pain, reduce inflammation, improve function, all at the same time while improving your health with no shortcuts, no gimmicks, just really truly how to get well and improve the trajectory of your health for the rest of the time that we have here on earth. So, sound good? All right. Well, let's jump into this. So, we've seen a genocidal collapse in the health of our community and particularly our country. There's really two questions that have both plagued me and encouraged me and motivated me ever since I got into the healthcare profession. There's two questions that have really stood out to me. Number one is, why are we so sick? And what do we have to do to get and stay well? And why are we so sick as a culture? And what do we have to do to get and stay well? Because whether you know it or not, we are in a catastrophic place when it comes to our health. 74% of Americans are either overweight or obese. About 52% of Americans are either diabetic or pre-diabetic, and that's about 30% of our kids with those exact same statistics. About 77% of our kids are unfit for military service. So kids that are military age, about 3/4 of those kids are unfit to serve in the American military. We know about 1/3 of Americans struggle with anxiety, about 20% of Americans struggle with major depressive disorder. We've got about 25% of women in America on antidepressants. So the problem continues to just get worse and worse. Rates of cancer and heart disease and diabetes and chronic fatigue syndrome, chronic pain, fibromyalgia, allergies, autoimmune disorders are all skyrocketing in rates that we've never seen at any point in history. So the problem's getting worse, and the question is why? And the prevailing narrative of why we're so sick is because of bad luck, bad germs, or bad genes. And I'm here to tell you that is bad science. We are not sick because of bad luck, bad germs, or bad genes. We're sick because of toxic environments and bad lifestyle choices. And we bioaccumulate the effects of those environments and lifestyle choices over time, and then they catch up with us. By the way, too, and we've all heard this, like that your genes determine how healthy you are, or how sick you are. There was a lady on 60 Minutes, Dr. Fatima Stanford. Fatima, I think it's a three name, but Fatima Stanford, she was on 60 Minutes, and she is an obesity researcher. She's Harvard trained, teaches at Harvard. She said that their weight loss has nothing to do with your choices, has nothing to do with your lifestyle or the food you choose. Weight loss and obesity has purely only to do with your genetics. It's all genetic. So if you just can somehow change your genes, which we know that leads to just teaching people to take drugs and take medications, but as long as you believe that you're a victim of your genes, that you have no control over your health or your health outcomes, it's just your genetics, then you have no chance. We have no chance if we believe that we're just a victim of our genes. We know that about 80% of cancers have nothing to do with our genes. Over 90% of heart disease has nothing to do with our genes. Type 2 diabetes is 100% reversible to a point. There's a point at which it's not going to be able to be reversed. It just depends on the metabolic health of that individual person. So you're not a victim of your genes. It's really our lifestyles and our choices, and that's really what today is all about. So what do we have to do to get and stay well? So let me switch this up. A part of the problem too, beyond the fact that we think that we're just victims of our genes, is the system that we have in place to get us healthy is really not equipped to do that. So in America, we have a healthcare system which is primarily focused on diagnosing and treating disease, very much like the fire department. So the current medical system has two primary tools. They use drugs and surgery, just like the fire department uses axes and they use water hoses. So very similar in between the two. Now, if you have a fire in your house, who are you gonna call? Hopefully you call the fire department. And if you call them on time, they're gonna come in your house, kick down your front door and bust out your windows, spray down your furniture and your belongings. But if you called them on time and they do a good job, can they save the life of your house? Yes. And should we be grateful for that service? Eternally. And the question is, what's left when they're gone? It's a mess. And how much sense would it make to call the fire department back the next day after your house caught fire to rebuild the drywall and repair the carpet and repaint and rebuild the house? Or would you need a different contractor with different skills and tools to actually do that job? And that is the problem. We have an emergency crisis system, a medical system, which is phenomenal. If you have a stroke, if you break your leg in an automobile accident, if your baby's not breathing, if you have any number of critical care conditions, we have the best system on planet Earth to address that. But if you want to get and stay healthy, the system's not equipped for that. If you picture your health on a 0 to 10 scale, so 10 on a health scale would be optimally, totally, completely healthy. What would 0 be? Dead, right? So let's say 1 would be just on death's doorstep. Let's say your health is at a 5. What's the only way to get healthier?
Go up.
Move toward 6. Which one does that, drugs or surgery? Right. So they can keep us from getting worse in our health, worse outcomes, keeping us from getting sicker and keep us alive, because the goal of the medical system is really to keep you alive and to save your life. And they do a phenomenal job of that. But to get and keep you healthy, whose job is that? That's our job. So who's responsible for our health? We are. So then who has to be the expert when it comes to your health? We do, or we don't have a chance. We leave it up to the system, which is driven by the pharmaceutical industry and it's the medical industrial complex, right? So we have to take ownership, and that's really what today's about. So have any of you guys seen this chart from Tufts University? So this is the food compass. So they had the food pyramid, and then they went to the food plate. That was a little better. And now we're at the food compass. And this is endorsed by the NIH, which is Dr. Fauci's criminal organization. Number 27 on the list of reasons why he needs to be in jail would be this chart, but I digress. So on this chart, you see like the foods in the green are the ones that they recommend that you eat more of. The ones in yellow you want to, moderate. And the ones at the bottom in red are the ones that you want to minimize, try to avoid. So if you look at this chart, you see things like ground beef is like worst of the worst. And then you have whole egg fried in butter, and you've got boiled or poached eggs. Those are in the moderate or to be minimized category. And then when you look at Lucky Charms, which is above an egg and ground beef, and then you have like frosted mini wheats up at the top along with Honey Nut Cheerios. How can we believe anything these people tell us about health and nutrition when they publish stuff like that? And here's the thing, if you're overweight or if you're diabetic or if you have chronic pain or any other medical condition, it's not your fault. It is really, literally not your fault. The system, the deck is stacked against us. When you look at the FDA, over 70% of their annual budget comes directly from the pharmaceutical industries. And then you have big sugar and big dairy and big wheat and all these agricultural entities that really view us as customers. So the more we consume of their product, the better customer and the more their profit margins enlarge. The reality is there's no money in healthy people and there's no money in dead people. Not in the medical system, not in the food industry. There's no money in dead people and there's no money in healthy people. The only money is in people who consume those products, take lots of drugs, see themselves as a victim, who are uninformed, and rely on that medical system for more and more medications and surgeries. So that's really what today is about, is giving you a plan to help empower you to take control of your own health. So here's how we get well. It's the simplistic part of this is to eat, move, and think in ways that we were designed. We are an animal, just like every other animal in the animal kingdom. I remember in school, we would have to go to one building to study like animal biology, and we would go to a totally different building to study like cadavers and human biology. But we're all just animals. We're part of the animal kingdom. If you took a chimpanzee out of the jungle and you gave him a desk job, and in the morning he ate a Frappuccino with a cupcake, and then he drove to his office and sat in a chair and stared at a computer all day long, and then had a sandwich with chips, and then for dinner he would stare at Netflix while he ate a big bowl of pasta. what happens to the health of that chimpanzee? Does he get healthier or sicker? How many times out of 1,000? 1,000 out of 1,000. If you give a chimpanzee that lifestyle and that environment, you move him to Franklin and give him our particular things we do every day, that animal's gonna get sicker 1,000 out of 1,000 times. What would the solution be? Would it be to give that chimpanzee the right combo of drugs and antidepressants and blood pressure medications? Or would it be to get him back to the environment that he was designed to flourish in? Go
back to the jungle.
Yeah. Right, and I'm not advocating donning loincloths and living in a cave again. Like, nobody wants to do that. But we do have to eat, move, and think in ways that we were designed. So this is the program. We have to improve our nutrition. We have to deal with our nervous system stress in our sleep, toxicity and deficiency, oxygen and lean muscle, and then we have to improve our emotions, mindset, and spiritual health. And I think for most people, every problem we deal with is one of or a combination of one of those problems, and we're gonna try to unpack that today. So the first one is nutrition. So this is a study that was done in 2018. It was one of the biggest studies that has ever been conducted like this, where they took how many patients with it? 55,000 patients, and they looked at their cardiometabolic health, which is basically how healthy their metabolism is. And they found that only 6.8% of Americans had optimal cardiometabolic health, which is basically how you use energy for fuel. So over 9 out of 10 people in America have a broken, fractured, dysfunctional metabolic system. And then that leads to metabolic syndrome, which we're gonna talk about, and then is the driver of every chronic disease that we worry about, from heart disease to cancer to obesity to neuropathy to fibromyalgia, headaches, you name it. All of those conditions are caused by or influenced by the metabolic system. So this is the cure, quote unquote, from the medical model. This is the cure that they're proposing for children as young as 6 years old. These are the new guidelines. For kids as young as 6, we're not gonna address their lifestyle, we're not gonna change their nutrition, we're just gonna put them on a shot that they take once a week. And you guys have heard of these GLP-1 agonists. The other names for that are semaglutide, Ozempic, Wegovy, tirzepatide, Mounjaro, Trulicity, Byetta, Victoza. It's just, and the numbers of those are coming out more and more every single year. Multi-trillion-dollar industry. And it's recommended for just about everybody. Now, these things do work. And that's the thing with diets too, because we're gonna talk about diets in a second. They all work, but there's some limitations. Just like these medications have some value. If you're 350 pounds and you're diabetic, take the shot. Like, you gotta do something. If you're on death's doorstep and you're literally at the brink of death, do what you have to do to get a jump start or to get the ball rolling. So some pros of this is that it reduces hunger, it does help people lose weight, and very little to no effort. Other than sticking your leg with a needle, there's no effort involved in that approach. Some of the downsides is vomiting, constipation, diarrhea, pancreatitis, gastroparesis, which, by the way, that's the mechanism of how the drug works. All those drugs on the left work by the same basic mechanism, is they slow down the conveyor belt from your mouth to your toilet. It slows that process down. That's also called gastroparesis, which can lead to bowel obstruction, which is fatal in a ridiculously high percentage of those cases. Gallstone attacks, bile duct blockage, which is a surgical problem for immediate surgery. It lowers your basal metabolic rate. So what does that even mean? It's how many calories you burn per day doing nothing. It's your BMR, how many calories you burn per day doing nothing. Now the problem with that is when you're on those medications, you're getting thinner, but you're getting fatter. Does that make sense? You're getting thinner, but you're getting fatter. You're getting thinner because you're losing weight, but your percentage of lean muscle to fatty tissue is going down because about 60% of the weight loss from those medications is bone, muscle, and connective tissue. So you're getting thinner, but you're actually getting fatter because you're losing muscle. And then when you come off the medications, you have less muscle mass, so you have a lower metabolic rate. So then when you start eating again, as everybody does, it starts to ramp that fat accumulation up tremendously. You lose the lean muscle mass, and it's a cost of anywhere for $1,000 a month or more. And people say, well, you know, my insurance pays for it. Well, that means we're all paying for it. And by the way, too, I always thought insurance companies had a vested interest in us being healthier. That nothing could be further from the truth. So ever since Obama initiated the Affordable Care Act, which has somehow made things much more unaffordable, it's like the Inflation Reduction Act where inflation goes up. This is all branding. But when they implemented that, they mandated that insurance companies could only keep 15% of the money they collect, only 15% could be kept as profit. The other 85% had to be doled out in benefits and surgeries and drugs. You get that? So it's the 85-15 rule. Would the drug company rather keep 15% of $1 billion or 15% of $1 trillion? Excuse me, the insurance company. They'd rather have a 15% of a much bigger pie, so they're incentivized for healthcare costs to continue to keep climbing because their 15% gets bigger and bigger and bigger the more we spend on healthcare costs. So the insurance company doesn't care about your health. The drug companies certainly do not care about our health, and largely the medical system doesn't either. And this is not an attack on doctors and nurses. There's some nurses here in the room right now. Those are some of the best. My sister's a nurse. Like, some of the best people on the planet are doctors and nurses. The problem is they're stuck in a system. You can't work for Ace Hardware and sell smoothies. You can't do that. If you work for Ace Hardware, you have to sell hardware supplies. If you work for the hospital, you can't sell nutrition and exercise and healthy living. You can only sell the products that your bosses allow you to do, and that's the drugs and the surgeries. So a substitute, this is something I use almost every day in my coffee. It's called allulose. I would write that down. It is by itself a GLP-1 agonist. So it's a sweetener that has no calories. It doesn't affect your blood sugar. It doesn't raise inflammation, but it is a sweetener which mimics those medications. And you put it in your coffee. Now, you probably need to take 2 to 5 grams of it a day, which people say, well, that's a lot or that's expensive. Well, how much is the shot gonna cost over time? So the key is you want to help the metabolism burn fat and burn fuel more efficiently. So the holy grail of health, wellness, metabolic function, cancer, heart disease, diabetes, is to become metabolically flexible. So the human body can only use basically two fuel sources. We can use glucose or sugar, or we can use fat for fuel. So when your body can flip-flop between the two and use glucose when it's available and then switch to fat or to ketones when the glucose is not available, that's what we call metabolic flexibility. The problem is the vast majority, over 90% of Americans, are pegged as pure sugar burners. Their body has very limited, if any, capacity to use stored fat for fuel. That's why people can lose a little bit of weight and they just kind of get stuck. Your body's incapable of mobilizing the fat around the waist or the butt, hips, and thighs because you're purely a sugar burner. And sugar burners get a lot of cravings. They get hangry. If they go 3 hours without eating, they're just a terror to be around. They have problems with energy and chronic pain, and they don't sleep as well. So really the key to this, and we'll talk about how to do this, is to move you toward a metabolically flexible fat burner. And if you're metabolically flexible, you can eat whatever you want. As long as you stay metabolically flexible, you can eat whatever you want. And did that mess up? There we go. So getting into nutrition, we have to talk through some of the myths, because there are a ton of myths out there when it comes to nutrition. And this one is calories in versus calories out. Raise your hand if you've heard of that before. It's all about calories in, calories out. Doesn't really matter what you eat. It's just how many calories you burn versus how many calories you consume. The quickest way to debunk that is 1,000 calories of broccoli versus 1,000 calories of Mountain Dew. Is that the same? Or does one do distinctly different things to your hormones, to your inflammatory levels, to your hunger response? So the calories don't matter as much as what and when you're eating. So the what matters more. Plus, if you eat 1,000 calories of broccoli, there's so much fiber and your body has to do so much work to process that. In some respects, it's a net negative when it comes to energy reserves. Now, we can consume enough calories that it will actually cause us to put on weight, but the reality is it's really the quality over the quantity. This is another biggie, is that fat makes you fat that clogs our arteries. Low fat is better than high fat or full fat. We have seen a literal explosion of products that are low fat. We have low fat ice cream, we have low fat yogurt, low fat milk, low fat cookies, and we've seen a steady increase in the number of high fat people. So it's not the fat that makes you fat, it's your body's inability to burn it and utilize it for fuel. That's really what this comes down to. And the truth is there's good and bad fats. There's fats that help you reduce your weight and help you reduce size, and there's some that actually pack on pounds because they're toxic, and there's weights that cause inflammation, and there's some that reduce or eliminate inflammation, and there's healthy and there's bad fats. So what is that? The healthy fats, what's an example of an unhealthy fat? Like a French fry, right? Yeah, or potato chips or something. You get something from a box bag or a can, the processed food, that's gonna be an unhealthy fat. The healthy fats are your grass-fed meats and your grass-fed butter. Can I get an amen for grass-fed meat and grass-fed butter? Amen, right? This whole red meat, you ever heard that red meat's bad for you?
That's why you cook it all the way.
You gotta minimize your red meat consumption, like red meat causes colon cancer and causes all these other cancers. Well, the data they took from that red meat study, when they looked at red meat consumption, it was a very poorly done study to begin with. It was called a retrospective survey, where they asked people in the last 6 months, how many times have you eaten red meat? And what counted as red meat was cheeseburger, French fries, and a Coke. That counted as red meat. Lasagna was also counted as a red meat. So was it the red meat or was it the pasta and the French fries and the Coca-Cola? Worst study you could ever imagine, but they took that data and they basically made the assumption that red meat's bad for us. The health of the animal, which we'll talk about this in a minute, is really what matters. So grass-fed meat, grass-fed butter and ghee, avocados, tree nuts like almonds, macadamia nuts, pecans, walnuts, and not peanuts. Peanuts are not a nut. They're actually a legume. So they grow on the ground and they get moldy. They could collect a lot of moisture, and they contain a thing called aflatoxin, which is it's a mold-based derivative toxin that's poisonous to the human body. And then, so you want to stick with your tree nuts, things that grow up in the air, and raw is better than cooked.
What about the almonds having lectins on the outside part?
Yeah, that's a whole other. If you don't, we're going to do like a Q&A at the end. So yeah, well, if you don't mind, I meant to say that too. If you can save all your questions to the end, we'll go through.
Sorry.
No problem at all. But yeah, lectins are on the list of things to worry about. I just think they're lower on the list than we probably need to worry about. And then when you're cooking foods, that usually takes out a lot of the lectins. But yes, the skin does contain, for some people it's an issue. Fatty fish, herring, mackerel, and sardines, which I will never eat. You will never see me eat a sardine. You'll never see me eat herring or mackerel. I will eat wild salmon, and then I will take my fish oils every night before I go to bed. Like that's the solution. And then your cooking oils, so at low temperatures you want butter and olive oil, and then at high temperatures we prefer avocado and coconut oil. Those are the two higher temperature oils that have a high flash point. They're very stable at high temperatures, are your avocado and coconut oil, and then at lower temperatures, butter, preferably grass-fed, and then olive oil. You never want to smoke olive oil, and you never want to smoke butter. So if you smoke it, it's become rancid. So the best way to turn a good fat into a bad fat is to smoke it and turn it rancid. So those are your low temperatures. So the other myth is that grains are healthy, that we gotta have 11 servings of those a day. That's how we get our B vitamins and our fiber. The reality is we don't really need, do you realize there's no such thing as an essential carbohydrate? There's an essential protein, and we call those essential amino acids. There's 8 essential amino acids. And essential means 2 things. It means it's essential, like you gotta have it for normal human function, and it's essential also because you can't make it, you have to get it from your diet. So there's essential proteins, which we call essential amino acids. There's essential fats, which we call essential fatty acids, but there's no such thing as an essential carbohydrate. And I'm not anti-carb. Like I love some sourdough bread with some butter on it. Like I'm the first one to go after that. But it's the overconsumption of these carbohydrates that's literally killing us. We have to address this problem And most people are getting more than 11 servings over the course of a day. The problem with grains is they can convert very quickly to sugar. So when you eat a piece of whole wheat bread, how quickly does that bread turn into mush? Like immediately. Like as soon as you eat a piece of whole wheat bread, the amylase that's in your saliva converts that starchy carbohydrate into essentially sugar. So before it ever even gets to your stomach, that piece of whole wheat bread is converted into sugar. And then have you guys ever heard of the glycemic index? How quickly something turns to sugar? What's higher on the glycemic index? A piece of whole wheat bread or a Snickers bar? Whole wheat bread. Whole wheat bread turns to sugar faster than a Snickers bar turns to sugar. Now, you did not hear me advocate eating Snickers bars, just so we're clear. But on the glycemic index, whole wheat bread turns quicker. The other one would be white bread and table sugar. Which one turns to sugar faster, white bread or table sugar? White bread. Google it, look it up. White bread turns to sugar faster than table sugar turns to sugar. So then we eat the breads and the pastas and the cereal and the crackers and the chips and the pretzels and the cookies and the bagels. By the time we eat all these things, we're literally consuming sugar by the ton. Do you realize in the early 1900s, we consumed about 10 pounds of sugar per person per year? Any guess as to what it is now? It's about 120. So we went from 10 pounds of sugar consumption in the early 1900s to over 120 pounds of sugar per person per year in the US, and we think we're getting sick because our genes have gone bad. And if you want to look at a genetic, and it's such a win-win for the medical system. Let's say you have high blood pressure, and you go to your doctor and says, yep, you got high blood pressure. Did you have any high blood pressure in your family? And you say, well, yeah, actually, my mom and dad. Great, take this pill. And on the flip side of that, you say, well, you got high blood pressure. Did your mom and dad have it? Nope, nobody in my family. Great, take this pill. It's a win-win. Not even sure why they ask that question, but you're gonna get the same treatment whether or not it's in your genes. And you have to go back about 40 generations to really blame something on genetics. So there is an emerging field. It's really becoming the gold standard within genetic research. It's called epigenetics, which means control above the genome, which means your genes are like a recipe book. So you have a recipe book that kind of tells, here's what to do, and then how those recipes are read is your lifestyle and your environments. Because if you look at Okinawans, those are people in Japan, they have all the genes for cancer, they have all the genes for heart disease, and all the genes for obesity. Those genes just never get switched on. So genes are like switches. We can turn them on with the wrong lifestyle, and we can turn them off with the correct lifestyle. So I'm just trying to hammer this home. It's all about our lifestyle and our environments. And then the other issue with grains, they cause inflammation. An excess consumption of grains, it causes inflammation. And then they also contain two sticky proteins called gluten and gliadin. Have you guys ever heard of gluten? So only about 1% of the population is celiac, which means when they eat gluten or a piece of bread, they get sick immediately. But over 90% of our population, especially European, Anglo-Saxon descent, about 90% of those people are highly gluten sensitive. And I hear it all the time. I have dozens of patients that say, you know, when I'm here, I live a gluten-free lifestyle, and then we took a trip to Italy, and I just let it rip. I ate pizza, I had croissants, I drank wine, I had pasta, and I felt fantastic and lost 5 pounds. And then they come back to the US, and they start eating healthy again, and they gain the weight back, and they get sick. So it's what we spray. We're spraying about 99% of all the crops in the US are sprayed. It's just pesticides, herbicides, insecticides. And then you have this, do you guys remember the old saying or the song, Amber Waves of Grain? Somebody want to sing it? No? So amber, they were like 6 foot tall wheat crop that would blow in the wind. And now we have this 18-inch hybridized, high yield GMO dwarf crop, which is loaded with gluten and fully loaded with pesticides. So it's not even the same product we used to eat. Because people say, well, Jesus ate bread and drank wine, right? Well, he was not eating Wonder Bread, and he certainly wasn't drinking Yellowtail wine. So it's a completely different product. It's not the same as it used to be, but the gluten and gliadin are highly inflammatory for the vast majority of people. So here's, if you ever heard me talk, I put this in almost every talk that we do. If you want to get healthy from a nutritional standpoint, you have to turn off your GPS. Because if you're eating foods consistently out of the G, P, and S category, then your GPS is set for inflammation, which leads to diabetes and cancer and cardiovascular disease, Alzheimer's and dementia. Do you know what they're calling dementia now? Type 3 diabetes. That's exactly right. Because the same blood sugar dysregulation, the same metabolic syndrome that causes type 2 diabetes also leads to dementia, Alzheimer's, and even Parkinson's in a lot of cases. It's diabetes of the brain. Again, it's in our control. Arthritis, autoimmune disorders. So inflammation is the cause or the driver of every single one of those conditions. So the G stands for grains. And again, that's the processed grains and the overconsumption of those, like your bread, pasta, cereal, crackers, chips, pretzels, cookies, bagels, muffins, oatmeal. Yes, oatmeal. Sorry. How many have been told that oatmeal is good for us? It's peasant food, is what that is. Again, if you eat a little bit of steel-cut oats every now and then, no big deal. Put some blueberries in it, who cares? But these big tubs of Quaker Oats, Wilford Brimley was lying to us for years that it would cure our diabetes. It does not. It actually drives that same condition. And it's one of the most nutrient-poor foods that we could ever put in our bodies. So oatmeal is not a health food, regardless of what you've been told. The other P stands for processed food and then processed seed oils. So if you get your dinner from a bag that's handed to you through a window, it's probably not going to be a healthy meal, more than likely. So we get that. We know that Doritos and pizza and hamburgers from McDonald's are probably not good for us. But the big issue is with processed seed oils. Now, your seed oils are your vegetable oil, your corn oil, your sunflower, safflower, cottonseed oil, and canola oil. You ever heard of canola oil being a health food? I mean, it's got the American Heart Association stamp of approval right on the side of the bottle. How could that be unhealthy? Do you know how they get that stamp of approval, by the way?
Pay enough money.
They just pay for it. It's a paid endorsement. They could put that on Lucky Charms. They could put that on Skittles, for all I know. You just pay. It's a purely pay-to-play system. But the seed oil, so what? Like with canola oil, for instance, do you know where canola oil comes from? Yes, he said corn. A lot of people think corn like it's a corn plant. If you look at the bottle, it kind of looks like a weird ear of corn. But it's genetically modified rapeseed oil. So they take rapeseed, which is completely unedible, and they put it into a machine and they press it under high heat, and it comes out in this big nasty sludge that they have to deodorize and bleach with hexane, and then it makes it to your grocery store shelf. By the time it makes it to your grocery store shelf, it's already highly rancid, omega-6, inflammatory, one of the worst oils that we can consume, but people tell us to eat those all the time. You know, where those came from was from industrial machine lubrication. And they said, well, these Americans are dumb enough, they'll probably eat it they'll probably cook in their food with it. So that's how this has all evolved. And canola stands for Canadian Oil Low Acid. It's an acronym for that genetically modified rapeseed oil. So again, the good oils would be your avocado and your coconut oil. And you can do some grapeseed if you have to, but avocado and coconut are the best, and then at low temperatures, butter and olive oil. And then the S, what do you think the S stands for? Nope, strawberries. I'm kidding. Sugar. Again, 120 pounds plus per year of sugar that we're consuming. Most of that is snuck into like ketchups and ranch dressing and breads and pastas and all these other things. So we're consuming literally so much of this stuff. It's just overwhelming our system. So that's the things to avoid. And when you look at diets, whether it be the carnivore diet or paleo or keto or vegetarian or vegan, are there any vegans in the room? I hope not, because I'm about to offend somebody. Actually, I love vegans. I eat them all the time. I eat cows, I eat venison, I eat deer. I love vegans, I eat them all the time. On its face, veganism just doesn't make a lot of sense from an ethical standpoint, number one, because have you ever plowed a soybean field? Do you know how many chipmunks and squirrels you murder? Not to mention all the landfowl and the grasshoppers and the beetles and the bugs. So when you say it's all about saving animals' lives, which animals matter? Because you murder a lot more squirrels and chipmunks plowing a soybean field than you ever do processing cows and chickens. So there's that, and then a lot of people that are on a vegan diet will go through about a 12 to 18 month honeymoon period where they feel great. They're cutting out a lot of this stuff, they start to feel better, they lose weight, and then after about 12 to 18 months, all the deficiencies start to catch up with them. Because you have to get B12, for instance, you have to get that from animal products. You can't get B12 from any kind of plant. So they have to supplement with B12 in order to stay healthy. Does any diet make sense where you have to supplement with something you buy at Walgreens in order to make that diet healthy? I just don't think it's sustainable long term. But all those diets have the same things in common. It's not so much what they tell you to eat, it's what they recommend that you don't eat. So whether it's keto, paleo, carnivore, whatever, they're all minimizing or reducing that G, P, and S. So what do those things lead to a process called insulin resistance, and we're going to talk about how to test for that toward the end. But insulin resistance is kind of pre-diabetes. Insulin resistance happens first, and the symptoms of that are tiredness, hunger, or getting hangry when you don't eat often enough, difficulty concentrating, weight gain, particularly around the middle, around the belly, and a little bit in the butt, hips, and thighs, high blood pressure, and then high cholesterol levels, which we're going to talk about in a little bit, doesn't really matter. Asking you your total cholesterol number is like asking you your eye color. Means almost nothing. We'll get into that in a minute. Insulin resistance then leads to type 1, 1.5, and prediabetes, type 2 diabetes, and you have gestational diabetes, cancer, coronary artery disease, hypertension, atherosclerosis, obesity, high cholesterol, which doesn't matter, fatty liver disease, PCOS, polycystic ovarian syndrome, which is directly caused by insulin resistance, which also leads to infertility. And then you have Alzheimer's disease, neuropathy, blindness, kidney failure, retinopathy, erectile dysfunction. So almost every disease that we worry about is driven by this process of insulin resistance. And we're going to show you how to fix that today. It's not that hard. So there's a thing called intermittent fasting. Has anyone ever heard of intermittent fasting? We call it privileged starvation. That's a bad joke. But intermittent fasting is periods of no food with periods of eating in a particular window. Dr. Brock just did a 10-day water fast, so give him a round of applause for that. 10 days. I bailed out on the end of day 2. I got to the evening of day 2, and I was like, I was feeling so sorry for myself. I was like, I just can't keep doing this. So, but he did 10 days, lost, 18 pounds, something like that? Looks great, feels great. He kept showing up to work, which was amazing. The way I like to do it is what's called intermittent fasting, and you eat in a 6 or an 8 hour window. So you basically do like a 16-8 is probably the most common way to do it, where you fast for 16 hours and then you eat your food in an 8 hour window every day. So that looks like you eat your dinner and you don't eat again until probably, noon or 1 o'clock, and then you start eating again. So I usually eat my breakfast around 1 p.m. It's kind of my average time for eating breakfast, and then I eat between 1 p.m. and about 7 p.m., give or take, and then I'm done for the day. So it's just condensing that into an 8 hour window. So when we do that, and there's different ways to do it. You can do what's called an OMAD, which is called 1 meal a day. So you're basically just eating dinner once that day. You could do a 3-day water fast. You could do the 16-8 or the 18-6, either way. But when we're doing intermittent fasting, what happens is when you eat your dinner, let's say tonight you eat a bowl of pasta and whatever else, a salad. So when you eat that food, the glucose from the food gets shuttled through the bloodstream, and then it gets shuttled into the liver. And when the liver fills up and there's no more capacity for your liver to hold that excess glucose, then it starts being converted into fat, which is what we see around our butt, hips, and thighs and around our belly. But after about 12 hours of no food, your body has used up all the sugar that's in your bloodstream, it uses up all the sugar that's in your liver, and now it has to go searching for fuel. So after 12 hours of no food, your body's using fat, stored fat, as a fuel source. It's converting those fats into ketones, which your body's using for fuel. Which, by the way, comparing sugar versus ketones is like comparing diesel fuel to rocket fuel. It burns cleaner. It crosses those ketones cross the blood-brain barrier, so your mental focus and your clarity improves. Your energy gets better. Most people sleep better. Inflammation levels come down. We see benefits in the blood, like decreased insulin, IGF-1 and leptin, increases your ketones, which is the rocket fuel, and then adiponectin and ghrelin. Ghrelin's your hunger hormone. That's the hormone that tells you that it's time to eat. That's how those GLP-1 agonists work, when those Ozempics and semaglutide, is they suppress that hormone called ghrelin. And then in the liver, we see increased insulin sensitivity, decreased IGF-1, increased energy uptake, reduced inflammation, reduces cellular proliferation. Anyone know what that sounds like? Cellular proliferation? Cancer. So it reduces cancer, particularly in the intestines, when you're going through that intermittent fasting process. In the brain, we see improved cognitive function, increased neurotrophic factors, increased stress response, reduced inflammation, better resting heart rate, blood pressure, reduced leptin, and you see that common thread of reduced inflammation in almost every single organ system of the body. So intermittent fasting, if you change nothing else, if you still want to eat cheeseburger, fries, and a Coke, and you want to do pasta or pizza for dinner, just condense it into a 6 or an 8 hour window, and you'll start to see changes. Now, if you combine that with turning off the GPS and eating healthier foods by God, then you get a massive, massive 1-2 punch. So that's really the secret. And this is earth-shattering, I know. Like, this is worth the price of admission here. Just eat food by God. Like, food that God made that looks similar to the way that He made it and put it on the earth for us to eat. Do you realize there are no animals in the wild that have obesity? You'll never see an obese giraffe. They don't exist. You'll never see a chronically ill rhinoceros with cardiovascular disease or cancer. Like, it doesn't exist in the wild. It's only when we take those animals and we put them in captivity do they actually get the same diseases that we get. So we are wild animals living in captivity, essentially, because we eat, move, and think in ways that are captive. So meat, that could be your grass-fed chicken, free-range beef, wild-caught fish, a little bit of pork, veggies, fruits, eggs, nuts, and seeds. If you can make that 80% of what you eat, you will undoubtedly get healthier. And for some people, they need to do more like 90 to 95% for a period of time. They kind of get things dialed in metabolically, and then they can start cheating and having, we call it the 80-20 rule. You want to be 80% healthy, 20% Southern. It's a bad joke. I've been told so many times I'm not funny. I can't help it though. I can't stop myself. I just want desperately. So the solution we have for that is a program called ChiroThin. You don't have to do that program. You can do it without that program. You can do it on your own. Just eat meat, veggies, and fruit, condense it to an 8 hour window, and you could do it on your own. If you want to get more bang for your buck and you want to actually do it with a program and with some accountability, and there's some supplements that we use along with this, but it's a 6-week metabolic reset program. So it's basically improving your BMR, that basal metabolic rate, which is the opposite of what the Ozempic and the Mounjaro and the semaglutide do, which lower your BMR. So it's increasing your basal metabolic rate, it's eliminating inflammation, improves metabolic flexibility, and most people lose between 22 and 40 pounds in 6 weeks. That's kind of the average. I think for women, it's about 22 pounds. Of course, men, they lose. Men could skip one breakfast and lose like 5 pounds. Like, it's a man's world. But that's why women are much more valuable. Like, men are more expendable, so we need you ladies more than we need men. But it's tougher for ladies because of the hormonal part of this. And then, so basically how the program works is there's 3 phases. There's a loading phase, and then a losing phase, and then a maintenance or a locking phase. So in the loading phase, it's 2 days. You got to eat 5,000 calories per day for 2 days. People's like, oh my gosh. And it kind of sounds like a big party for some people. It's not, I promise. It's the hardest 2 days are the loading phase. And people say, well, if I'm going to try to fix my metabolism and lose weight, why would I eat 5,000 calories for 2 days? That makes no sense. So what happens is when you consume that volume of food, cleaner is better. But at the end of the day, if you got to get to your 5,000 and that means you had a McFlurry before bedtime, so be it. We'll show you how to do it healthy. Cleaner's better, but at the end of the day, you just want to get to that number, because when you're consuming all those calories, your liver is having to kick into gear. It's having to deal with much more energy than you've probably ever given it in one sitting, except for Thanksgiving Day. So it's giving your body the chance to upregulate liver function. It starts to initiate phase 2 detox pathways. So we spike your metabolism in those first 2 days, and then the next 42 days, or the 6 weeks, we're gonna lower it down to a low glycemic, meat, veggies, and fruits, intermittent fasting. We show you exactly how to do that, what to eat, the recipes. You've got some recipes, I think, that are in your packet, but we show you exactly how to do that, and then there's some supplements, some drops that you take, which help to stimulate or keep the metabolism elevated throughout those 6 weeks. So again, most women lose 22-ish pounds over 6 weeks. Most men, can be up to 40 pounds depending. And you're losing it the right way. Have you ever heard that if you can't lose more than a pound a week healthy? Anyone ever heard that? If you lose more than a pound a week, that's not healthy. Well, someone told you that knows nothing about the basics of biochemistry. Because a lot of that weight in the beginning is that intracellular inflammation. It's the fluid that's in and around our cells that's part of that inflammatory process. So a lot of the initial weight is gonna be that intracellular inflammation. Have you ever seen a pound of fat? How much a pound of fat? A pound of fat looks like a brick. So you're not likely to lose 22 of those. Most people don't even have 22 of those over the course of 6 weeks, but you're gonna lose a lot of fat, you're gonna maintain muscle, actually improve muscle density, and then you're gonna reduce inflammation. That is the key. So most people, very quickly into the program, they feel better, they're starting to sleep better, they have more energy, their hunger goes away. People think, well, if I'm only eating twice a day, I'm gonna get hungry. And it's usually not the case. I mean, there's a little bit of that here and there. We give you some free snacks and some free veggies to do. And then the 4 weeks after that, do the 2 days of loading, 6 weeks of locking or of losing, and then 4 weeks where you wanna lock that in. So you wanna lock in that new metabolic set point. So for those 4 weeks, you don't wanna go up or down more than about 2 pounds. So people say, well, I wanna keep losing. It works like a stair step. So you load, and then you lose, and then you lock that in. And then if you want to do it again, you load, lose, and lock. That way, if you fall back off track and let the wheels fall off, you go back to the next stair step. You don't go all the way back to where you started. Because everyone here's probably lost 100 pounds in their life. I lost 20 pounds 5 different times, right? Because you lose the weight, you gain it back, then it comes back a little more than the time before. It's that whole vicious cycle. Well, this is teaching you how to improve your metabolic function so that it's more of a lifestyle for ongoing. So the normal cost of that program is $17.97. Jessica, Coach Jessica, she's our expert in that, so say hi. She's the best. We stole her from another place that was doing this program, and she is fantastic at what she does. She will handhold you through the process. We do an initial assessment. Is the assessment in their packet?
I have all the folders here.
You have all the folders there? So she'll do a full body scan of body fat, water, lean muscle, intracellular fat. It kind of shows you exactly where your initial starting point is, and then we'll rescan you once a week or once every 2 weeks to kind of see exactly what the numbers are doing. So we're not just basing it just on the scale, it's based on how your body's changing. And then for today only, if you want to get started with that, talk with her after this is over. We'll save you $300. So it's a little savings because you're here. You get a little savings of that. And then we do a 20-pound guarantee, right, Jessica?
We do.
So over those 6 weeks, if you don't lose 20 pounds, assuming that you made an effort, but you don't lose the 20 pounds, then you can do it again for 6 weeks for free. It's on us. So it works. Every time people put it into action, it works. So the next one, so that's nutrition and whole food supplements. We'll talk a little bit more about, with supplements too, there's really 3 primary supplements that most people need to take on an ongoing basis. Vitamin D, which we're gonna talk about a little bit more in a second. Magnesium, which is highly deficient in almost every American, just nationwide. And there's different types of magnesium, and we could talk through like the details for you. If you have like muscle aches and muscle pain, you want a little better energy, magnesium malate is the best. If you're constipated and you're not going to the bathroom, magnesium citrate would be the best, and then glycinate. So they all have different purposes based on what you need. So vitamin D and magnesium, and then the third one would be omega-3 fish oils. So most of us get very little fatty, oily fish, and we can only get those from the diet. Unless you're an Eskimo, you gotta eat healthy fats. And by the way, too, on that ChiroThin program, for those 6 weeks, no fats, or very, very little fat. And people say, well, why would that be healthy if I'm not consuming fat? Because if you're consuming the fat, your body's gonna use that fat for energy. We want your body searching for fat on your body. So we're minimizing the intake for the short term of healthy fats, and then on the maintenance phase and beyond, we wanna increase those healthy fats. So, nervous system, stress, and sleep. You may or may not be able to hear this. I could not get the speakers to work, but you can read the captions.
All you have to do to get an amazing night of sleep, the best night of sleep of your life, is simple. For the last hour you're awake, don't use your phone. Okay? Now, is that something you can all try?
No.
No.
What?
No. How about just the last 20 minutes before you go to bed?
But sleep is really important. This is the most important thing in my life. I would take any pill. I would have any surgery for a better night's sleep.
Same.
Definitely, I would do that.
Okay, how about just the last 5 minutes that you're awake?
No, I really don't think so, doctor.
Like maybe put your phone down, go brush your teeth, use the toilet, go to bed.
So you expect us to sit on the toilet without our phones? Like, it's crazy.
Just the last time you use it right before you go to bed.
Okay, so what time of day do you recommend that I go on WebMD and look up what all my rashes mean? Yeah, when should he look up his rashes?
All you have to do.
So, a little comical, but that's the world we live in. We don't go to the bathroom anymore without carrying our phones with us. So it's the 3-2-1 rule. So the 3-2-1 rule with sleep is 3 hours before bed, no food, ideally. If you can get no food 3 hours before bed, 2 hours before bed, no work, and then an hour before bed, no screens. It sounds simple, sounds easy, but it's not for a lot of people. And then when you do sleep, and you do have, when you're preparing for sleep, you want your room to be cold and dark, preferably 69, 68 degrees. Yes, your power bill, blah, 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 but get the room nice and cold, and then you want to block out any possible visible light. So any cracks in your curtains, anything under the door, even the little red light on the TV that kind of shines nonstop, you want to cover all that light up because your brain can't really distinguish very well between light coming in from a TV or from the sun coming up. So it messes with our melatonin cycle. So cold, dark room, reduce all the light. 3 hours before bed, no food. 2 hours before, no work. And an hour before, no screens. Yeah, that's how she said a lot of people sleep with the TV on, which I will guarantee you're not getting a good night's sleep. But we get into the habit of that. Yes, ma'am?
What about, ever since I had COVID, I have ringing in my ears. And I've noticed that putting on the TV kind of like deadens.
Kind of dulls that out.
Yeah, what do you suggest for that?
Sound machine. We carry, anytime we go on vacation, we look like the Griswolds. We bring a whole separate suitcase with my neck roll and our special pillows and our sound machines. We bring a backup sound machine just in case one breaks. Like we're insane about white noise and sound machines in the background, which some people say are good or bad. I could care less, but it does help me sleep and there's no light and no screens. The next one is your nervous system. So there's four key things that you got to know about your body and about how your body works. Number one is that your body is self-healing, self-maintaining, and self-regulating. Your body's designed to heal itself. If you cut your finger, anyone ever had a paper cut? Yeah. Right? Anyone walking around with a paper cut from the Obama administration? No, because after a week or two, what does that cut do? It heals. Every time. You don't have to put a Band-Aid on it. You don't have to put Neosporin on it. Your body knows how to heal itself. You sprain your ankle, your body heals itself. You get COVID, 99.6% of the time, if you're under the age of 90, your body's going to heal itself. So your body's designed to heal itself as long as the nervous system is intact. So the nervous system, the second point is, your nervous system is what controls all health and all healing in your body. Do you guys know what the first organ to form in the body is when you were in your mother's womb? That romantic night when your mom and dad had that romantic embrace. sperm and egg came together. Do you know what the first organ to form was? Some people say heart. Yep, I used to think that too. It's actually your brain. So your brain is the first organ to form. So your brain forms first, and then it grows a tail, and it forms your spinal cord, and then you grow these little branches, and then you start to get all of your organs, your heart, your thyroid, your stomach, kidney, liver, spleen, pancreas. So it's like the tree trunk, the branches, and all the fruit. You don't take the fruit and throw it up on the tree. Like the tree grows up and then the fruit grows out later. That's how your body works. So your brain is sending messages at about 350 miles an hour. Your brain is sending neuroelectrical information down your spinal cord and out your nerves into all the organs, cells, and tissues of your body. If I was to cut the nerve to your heart, what do you think would happen to your heart? Any volunteers? No. If you cut the nerve to the heart's going to be dead. Sometimes or always. Always, right? Instead of cutting the nerves that leave the lower part of your neck are the ones that control your heart. So the brain sends a message down your spine, out the nerve in the lower part of your neck, into your heart, and it tells it exactly how to beat and when and how to beat. So instead of cutting the nerve to the heart, what if you had a whiplash when you were 16? Or you fell off the bike when you were 12? Or you had a trampoline accident? Or you had another car wreck? And it started pinching or putting pressure on the nerves to the heart. What's happening slowly to the heart? Slowly dying, or it's having to work harder. Blood pressure can go up, blood cholesterol goes up. Your body's working harder because the brain has lost its ability to control the heart properly. You guys remember Superman, Christopher Reeve? The real Superman, not this Joker they have nowadays. But remember how he got injured? How Christopher Reeve got injured? Yeah, he fell off a horse. He was horseback riding, he got bucked, and he fell. When he fell, he chin planted. So his chin was like the first thing to hit the dirt. And I always thought that it severed his spinal cord, like it cut the cord in half, but it was a 1 centimeter bruise on the top part of his spinal cord. That was the entire damage. You could have covered it up with your pinky. But that part of his spinal cord is the relay system between his brain and the rest of his body. So what happened to his body? Yep, he couldn't move his arms and legs. He had to live in a wheelchair. They had to have a pacemaker to keep his heart beating, a respirator to keep his lungs breathing. They had to push on his bowels to make his bowels move. His immune system shut down, his hair fell out, and he died in about 9 years. Now, if we gave him the right cocktail of medications, could he get healthy again? Or the right green smoothie, or the right supplement pills, or the right whatever. The only way to get him healthy would be to restore that connection between the brain and the body. And that's really what chiropractic is about. It's not about your neck pain or your stiff back or your headaches or your sore neck. It's about allowing your body to communicate properly with the organs of the body.
Didn't he have that?
He was kind of too far gone at that point. I mean, at that point, once you have traumatized the spinal cord, nobody in here is dealing with that level of degree. But yeah, at that point, that's kind of too far gone. So this is the normal side view of the neck. This is an x-ray of a lady's neck, kind of looking from the side. Face and jaw, she's kind of looking this way. You should have this nice forward curve in your neck. We call that the arc of life because the brain is sending the messages through that arc. And everybody hold your hand like that, like the letter C. That would be the healthy spine looking from the side. So your spine has a forward curve, kind of like a banana. That mushy part of your hand is the spinal cord. Now, the reason I do this is because a neurosurgeon got up in front of a bunch of other neurosurgeons and he had them do this with their hand. So if he can do it, it makes me look smart. But anyway, you got that curve, your spinal cord is nice and loose and relaxed. If you straighten out your hand, now look what that does to the spinal cord. So it's stretching, compressing. It's essentially like stepping on the water hose that your brain is using to communicate with the body. And then a lot of cases that we see, their spine is actually going in the opposite direction, so it's stretching the cord that much further. It can lengthen it up to 2 inches. So you imagine if you're stressing that line of communication between your brain and your body, how healthy can you be? So over time, what we see is someone will have an injury or a fall or an accident. The first thing that happens is that spine is going to lose its normal healthy curve and start to get straight. And then if that progresses over time, we'll start to see the discs between the vertebrae begin to collapse. And then eventually, because the spine is so unstable, your body starts treating it like a broken bone. You ever heard of arthritis? People say, I've got arthritis in my neck or arthritis in my knee. That is merely your body's way of trying to create more stability. If my left knee's out of alignment and my right knee's in perfect alignment, which one gets arthritis first? The one that's out of alignment. Your body's using bone to try to remodel that joint to create more stability. This is stable. If your head weighs as much as a bowling ball, it should be on a nice curved neck with a nice shock absorber. When you lose that curve, it starts jamming and then deteriorating those lower discs. The problem is the pain doesn't usually show up until the problem is more advanced. So it takes about 10 or 20 years of having that initial problem to start having pain in most cases. So we always wait till the pain shows up. This is lung cancer. So it's an x-ray, chest x-ray of somebody from behind. You see the big tumor on the left side? It'd be the right side because he's facing this way. But that's the tumor on the right side, and then no tumor on the left side. What do you think caused that? People say smoking. Well, maybe it's smoking. Well, did the smoke just go in one lung? Like if you smoke a cigarette, it doesn't go in just one lung, it goes into both. Maybe it's genetics. So the right lung has different genetics than the left lung? Or could it be where that kink in the spine is, those nerves leave from here and directly control the lungs? Could it be that there's choked off, strangulated nerve supply to that organ, and then it, for some whatever reason, is not healthy? So that's the piece that nobody really looks at, is what caused it in the first place. Because a lot of people will come in that'll have cancer or some sort of problem, and they'll say, well, I've got cancer in my lung. And I'll say, well, how are your kidneys? And they say, fine. How's your stomach? It's fine. How's your liver? It's fine. So why is that one organ the one that broke down due to the lifestyle and the environmental toxins and the stuff that we're exposed to? What was weak about that one organ? And it relates back to the nervous system. So toxicity, some of you guys, if you're not currently patients, you'll have this. If you want to get checked out, we're doing a discounted check. This is kind of your what to do from here. So if you want to get checked out, we do exam, x-rays, consultation. If you're not currently a patient and you're interested, you just circle on there that you want to get a chiropractic exam, and we'll be happy to set that up with you before you leave today. That's how we deal with that. And then stress, by the way, too, we kind of missed on stress. Your stress works, well, here's the thing. As long as you're alive, you're gonna have stress. Stress is not gonna go anywhere. And I've never heard someone in 20 years of practice say, I hold all my stress in my pinky. Like every time I get stressed out, my pinky just throbs. Like nobody says that. Where do they hold their stress? Neck, shoulders, or back? I hold my stress right there. So wherever the weak spot of your spinal column is where you're gonna hold your stress. Because your spine works a lot like the fuse box in your house. So the power comes in from the road, it gets into the fuse box and gets distributed to the kitchen and the living room and the dining room. So just like with your spine, when you're overloaded with stress, we tend to blow a fuse. Two of those vertebrae will lock up and misalign and create pressure on the nerve. To protect the system, we give it the weakest link, and then that's what stress causes to the spine and the nervous system. So we can keep flipping the breaker and keep adjusting you, but if we don't start to deal with the overaccumulation of stress, we're not getting to the root cause. Toxicity and deficiency would be the third one. This is a list of toxic ingredients, the most common ones anyway. You've got the benzoyl peroxide, which is found in a lot of like acne products and skin creams. You've got the DEA, MEA, and TEA, which are found in like things that are foamy, the foaming agent, dioxins, like the list of these are a mile long. The average man uses about 8 different products every day. Poisonous toxic products, which we know about 60% of what we put on our skin gets absorbed, because your biggest organ in your body is actually your skin. So if you're putting it on your skin, you're eating about 60% of it. And kids are even worse because they absorb much better than we do. So the average, like when I was this morning, got up and brushed my teeth, that's one product. And then I did my shampoo, conditioner, which I do a 2-in-1, so I only count one of those. So shampoo and conditioner, and then I did like a body wash and then soap for my face. I'm already up to 4? And then I do a little bit of spritz of cologne, a little bit of deodorant, some stuff in my hair. So by the time you add that up, I'm using like 8 toxic products. And we try to use better products, but we put 8 toxic things on our skin every day. And for women, it's usually in more like the 15 to 17 product per day category, because you guys put stuff on your face and in your eyes, and I don't even want to know. But you start adding those up over time, we're bioaccumulating all those toxins over time. Now, the beautiful thing is your body is incredibly adept at detoxing itself. It knows what to do. If you just give it the right things, your body knows how to detox a lot of these ingredients, but the problem is it's found in just about every commercial product. So we recommend like Native, and you can get this at Target. Native has like shampoo and body wash and deodorant. We use Tom's and Jason's and Melaleuca. The products have gotten so much better. And so when I first started doing this, I was using that Tom's deodorant that you got to reapply like every hour and a half. Like, it's great, but I'm always putting it back on. Now they have some that actually work and they last basically the whole day. So the personal care products is probably the worst, and then you have your cleaning products and your laundry detergents and your fabric softeners, and by the time you add all this stuff up, we're just pouring toxins into our bodies. So the most common ones are your BPAs, which are found in cans and can liners, dioxins from industrial manufacturing, flame retardants, which is in carpets and comforters and blankets, phthalates, which are in almost every plastic bottle or every. If you take a plastic bottle, like a water bottle, and you can squish it and it makes that noise, then that is loaded with phthalates. And those things are endocrine disruptors. They're very hard to get out of the body. Pesticides, like we said, over 99% of all the crops in the US are sprayed with pesticides. That's why it's so important to get organic whenever possible. Phytoestrogens, which is mainly from a lot of the soy production. We always say that soy turns little boys into little girls and little girls into cancer patients. So you want to avoid processed soy. Soybean oil, tofu. The ones you can eat are like the fermented soy, like the tempeh, miso, natto, the stuff you get at the Japanese restaurant. Those are fine because they're fermented, or you want to get like organic edamame, that's great. But the processed soy, the soy milk, the soy cheese, the tofus, the soy yogurts, those are the ones that have the highest amount of phytoestrogens. And then PFAs, those are your forever chemicals. Why do you think they call them forever chemicals? Because they last forever, they get in your body, and then that's the most common ones. And the best way we can eliminate a lot of this is to change our diet for that 6 weeks or for whatever period of time. Give your liver a break, because the liver is like the oil filter in the car. So you get rid of some of the toxic food, and then you give your body a chance to catch up to getting rid of these toxins. As long as you're pouring in the food, your body has no time or energy to deal with all this stuff. So it really starts with the diet first. The reasons to go organic: pesticide exposure is linked to nervous system disorders, immune system suppression, childhood cancers, all this explosion of childhood cancers. We're gonna have about 2 million new cases of cancer this year. Do you realize that? That is an astronomical number. It's never been even close to that before. About 1 out of 2 men and 1 out of 3 women will get cancer at some point in their life. So cancer is just literally skyrocketing, and nothing we're doing is slowing the problem down. They think the only thing we've done in the last 50 years to even remotely impact the rates of cancer is smoking cessation. That's the only thing we've done. It's not these new designer drugs. It's not these magical surgeries, which they can have a time and place, don't get me wrong, but the more drugs and surgeries we throw at the problem, the worse the problem gets, because we're not addressing the root issue of why it's there in the first place. Breast cancer, diabetes. Do you remember when you were kids what the 2 kinds of diabetes used to be called? Juvenile. Yeah, it used to be juvenile and adult onset. Remember those days? Well, they don't call it that anymore. They call it type 1 and type 2 because so many kids are now developing adult onset diabetes. And the record was set a few years ago in a 3-year-old that was diagnosed with adult onset diabetes. So not only are we getting sicker and sicker, but it's happening at younger and younger ages.
They also have called juvenile pregnancy.
Ju-
Pregnancy diabetes.
Gestational, yep. Yeah, that's on the rise too. Reproductive damage, hormonal problems, asthma, exacerbation of ADD, ADHD, and autism. The autism rates about 30 years ago was about 1 in 10,000. Do you know what it is today? It's 1 in 36. It's 1 in 22 boys in California. So you go from 1 in 10,000 to 1 in 22 in the course of 30 years. But it's because we're better at diagnosing it. Give me a break. If that was the case, where's all the 60 and 70-year-olds that are wearing helmets? You don't see them. You don't see kids, or you don't see adults that got it when they were, prior to 30 years ago. We're seeing this onslaught, and those kids will need care for the rest of their life. Literally a lifelong expense. When their parents die, who's going to take care of them? It's really a tragic, and it leads, pesticides are part of that equation. This 72 vaccines before the kids get through high school is a part of the problem. When you start adding all this up, it's an enormous. Did you guys know it's 72 vaccines before a kid gets through high school? 72. When you were kids, you probably got 6 or 7. That was it. 72 doses of 17 vaccines, and we call that health care. We've got the sickest kids on planet Earth. They get sicker every year, and we keep dosing them. Now we're adding the COVID vaccine to the schedule for children as well. Because when they add those vaccines to the kids' schedule, there's no more liability. They can't be sued. Their product can't be taken off the market. Once it's in the childhood schedule, it's there for life. A study in the Journal of the higher levels of cancer fighting, so you kind of win on both ends with this. If you're eating organic, you get more antioxidants, and you get less pesticides. So you're kind of winning on both ends of the equation. Now, when you're moving to organic, you always want to switch your animal products first. Why would we switch animal products before fruits and vegetables? And it's the lifespan. So if you eat a cow that's 2 or 3 years old that's been eating pesticide-laden grain for its whole life, it's bioaccumulating those pesticides and herbicides over time, and it gets into the meat, and now we're eating years of pesticide accumulation versus a tomato, which was just sprayed once, and now you eat it. So if you're gonna make the switch your animal products, dairy, cheese, meat, fish, poultry, switch that first, and then if you got the budget and you want to take it a layer deeper, then you switch your veggies and your fruits. This is a illustration of grass-fed versus free-range versus conventional. So that's your grass-fed cows on the top. I call those the Hillsborough Road cows. You ever driving down Hillsborough Road, you see those happy cows out running around, they're babies, they're getting sunshine, they're eating grass, right? Those are happy cows. And then you have your feedlot cattle, which stand in a pen or a very enclosed, nasty space, and they feed them grain. When you give an animal grain all day long, what do they get? Sugar, which makes them fat and sick. So then they have to load them with antibiotics and vaccines and a bunch of other medicines in order to keep them alive. And with those feedlot cattle, as long as they can get up on their feet, as long as they can get to their feet, they're suitable for consumption. So they literally will lift them up with a bulldozer to their feet and say, yep, take that one. They don't have to be healthy, they just have to be ambulatory. So that's the grass-fed meat, because the health of the animal really makes all the difference. So if the animal was healthy, if it's a healthy cow, it's a healthy steak, it's a healthy hamburger patty. If the chicken was healthy, it's a healthy chicken sandwich, it's a healthy egg. But if the animal was kept in a pen or fed hormones, antibiotics, and it's the health of the animal that makes all the difference. You got your free-range chickens versus, you know what this is here underneath the chicken coop?
Water.
It's a tilapia pond. It's a twofer. They feed two for the price of one. So the chickens will poop into the tilapia farm, and the tilapia will eat the droppings of the chicken. By the way, tilapia is not even it's a frankenfish. So if you're getting like fish sticks or going to Captain D's or getting whatever, that is not real food. That is not even a real animal. It is a complete biological, scientific creation experiment. And then with your farm raised versus wild caught, that's what wild caught salmon looks like, and that's your farm raised. And they will actually put dye, like astaxanthin is the dye that they'll use to try to make their fish look more like wild caught. And when you're eating fish, you want to make sure the smaller the better. So the reason the smaller the better is because of bioaccumulation. because the smaller fish get eaten by the bigger fish, and the bigger fish eat those fish. So if you're doing like swordfish and some of your bigger tuna, those have the highest concentrations of dioxins and phthalates and all these other chemicals. So smaller is better. Or just take your fish oils. Clean 15 and dirty dozen. So this is the, when you get into the fruits and veggies, the ones on the left are the ones that you don't really ever want to waste your money buying organic. Unless you just want to, God bless you, do what you want to do. But we don't ever buy the ones on the left side organic. We always try to get these organic when possible. So the best way to visualize this, and if you want the slides, just mark it on that and I'll email you all these slides. Be happy to. But the best way to visualize is if you spray the pesticide on the part of the fruit or vegetable that you're going to eat, then always try to get that organic. If it lands on the part that you're going to peel off and throw away, then don't get that organic. Like bananas. Unless you're eating the outside of the banana, don't worry about getting those organic. And if you're eating the outside of the banana, you got bigger problems than this. But some of these don't really make sense, like broccoli and asparagus and things like that. My bad joke was even bugs don't like to eat broccoli and asparagus, so they don't have to spray them. They make their own internal pesticides, so they have very low concentrations of external pesticides. But like apples and bell peppers, the problem is all decisions are made at the point of purchase. So when you get to the grocery store checkout line, that's where the decision is made. And you look at the non-organic apple, the big shiny Honeycrisp apple is about the size of a football, and it's big and juicy and tasty. And then you got the organic apple that looks all bruised and dirty. It looks like it's been kicked down the aisle, and it's twice as much. So the question is, if we eat things that make us healthier, is that an investment or is that an expense? It's an investment, right? Do we believe that or do we just know the right answer? If we eat things that make us healthier, because everything you eat is either making you healthier or making you sicker, or maybe some things are neutral. But for the most part, if you're eating things that make you healthier, that is actually an investment. So we have to take our grocery budget, which nowadays is hard because everything's so expensive, but you got to take that out of like the cable bill and the water bill and the cell phone bill category and put it in like the investment column, not the expense column. So some of the top 10 alternatives, salad dressings, those a lot of times are the worst of the worst because you've got the bad oils, you've got sugar, you've got the process, it's just processed to death. So you can make your own, like I do like an oil, like a olive oil, a little bit of balsamic vinegar, a little bit of spicy mustard, stir that up. That is a fantastic salad dressing. Or you can get like Annie's, which are okay. I like Walden Farms and Primal Kitchen. Nowadays, there's so many alternatives, there's so many options for these things. It's really great. Candy, I'm gonna skip over that one because I love candy. Stevia and monk fruit, and then using stuff with that allulose, different healthy sweeteners. Xylitol is another decent one. Deli and packaged meats, which can be the worst of the worst. So you want to use clean sources, preferably organic. Your white bread, switch, if you're still going to eat bread, switch to that whole ground or stone ground sprouted bread. Do you know what that's also called? Ezekiel bread, that's right. Which you got to get it in the freezer. Your bread should not last on your kitchen counter for 3 weeks. Like inherently something's wrong with it if it stays non-moldy in your pantry for 2 or 3 weeks. So that case in point there. Margarine, can't believe it's not butter. You ever heard of that product? Well, what is it? It's not butter. Yeah, it's petroleum is what it is. It's basically, do the ant test, the ant, A-N-T test. So in the springtime, not so much now, but when it gets warmer, take a scoop of margarine and a scoop of butter, put it on a plate, and leave it out on your back porch. See which ones the ants will eat. They will devour the butter. They will not touch the margarine or the other processed stuff. So ants are so much smarter than we are. Like it's inherently. Diet sodas and drinks, we use like a greens powder. Teas, there's all kinds of good teas. Water, anyone ever heard of Zevia? That's my favorite. Get it at Publix, Kroger, wherever. They have like a Dr. Zevia, which tastes nothing like Dr. Pepper. They have a Mountain Zevia, like a Mountain Dew version. At the end of the day, investment or expense, right? No food tastes as bad as cancer feels. Just remember that. And until we make that connection between what I'm eating is dictating my health outcomes, but we just don't really think it matters. Like, it's just a this or that. If I gave you a Hershey Kiss, just one little innocent Hershey Kiss, on a 1 to 10 scale, how bad is that for you? Like a 7? I would say like a 2. It's just one Hershey Kiss. But we take that same Hershey Kiss and we lace it with arsenic. Colorless, tasteless, odorless, arsenic. Now it's a 10. Because I just changed the belief system. I didn't really change the product. We changed what you believe about the product. But the reality is we just think it's just our genetics. Doesn't matter what you eat. Because the problem is we all know someone who eats right, they exercise, and they still get cancer, right? And then we all have that great uncle that smokes and drinks and cusses and eats KFC every day, and he's like 90 and you can't kill him. Raise your hand if you got that uncle that just won't die, right? So how do you explain that? Well, it must be genetics. It's not genetics. I promise you, it's function. It's the body's ability to function above and beyond what we're doing to our bodies. GMO foods, those are genetically modified foods, organic, local, free-range, grass-fed, that's your way to get around those. Commercial dairy, organic and raw. We try to get away from commercial milk. Because we're the only species of animal that keeps drinking milk after they're weaned from their mother. Like bunny rabbits don't keep drinking milk, and deer don't keep drinking milk, and we're the only animal that drinks milk after they're weaned from their mother. And we're not even drinking our same species of animal. We're drinking an animal that's like 500 pounds compared to our 130 pounds. The proteins are bigger, it's highly inflammatory, creates mucus in the upper respiratory tract, but milk does a body good, right? Again, marketing. We've all fallen for this marketing. So if you're gonna go organic, or if you're gonna drink milk, mother's milk is best, but if mom is unavailable, then organic and raw would be your best options. Anyone ever had raw milk? Have you? It's great. You just pick out the dust and the hair and it tastes fantastic. I'm kidding. No, raw milk's great. The problem is it's illegal. You know it's illegal to get raw milk? You have to buy like 1/1000th of a cow, and you got to meet your dealer in the parking lot, and you could buy cigarettes, but you can't buy raw milk.
You can probably get it from the Amish people.
Yeah, you can get it from the Amish. But that's the absurdity of our system is we allow Doritos and these curly fries and cigarettes, but then we outlaw raw milk. So what we do is we do like a little bit of almond milk, a little bit of coconut milk. You know, there's ways to get around that. Seasoned packaged foods, you want to switch to organic or natural alternatives. We get that little table set up. So after we're done here, those are like my go-to snacks. I am a snackaholic. I love snacks. Big fan of them. So we have some healthy snacks. There's like a cereal. There's a bunch of chips, nuts, seeds, chocolate. So if you guys want to try those things, just do that after the talk. But they're a little more expensive, you know. So don't eat a whole bag of popcorn. Like just take a couple handfuls and be done, and it doesn't cost as much at the end. I know. So vitamin D. We need to touch on this real quick, especially because it's the winter time. This is like vitamin D. This is cold and flu season. Yes, Al?
Plant-based foods, do they fit into this equation at all?
Yeah. Fruits and veggies?
Plant-based food?
Fruits and veggies?
They make this, like hamburgers or something.
I love fruits and veggies. But all the processed, like the Miracle Burger or whatever that nasty stuff is that they do, it's like a tofu seed oil burger that they do. No, we're gonna pay the piper with those things. They just haven't done the research. Yeah, minimally processed, the better. If it looks the way God made it, eat it. Now, you're not gonna eat a cow. You're not gonna take a bite out of the back of the cow. It still has to be processed, but minimally processed is obviously the better. So vitamin D, we're in the midst of cold and flu season, which there's no such thing. There is a vitamin D deficiency season, but there's no such thing as a cold and flu season. Because when do we get colds and flus? In the winter. When do we get less sunshine? In the winter. When do colds and flus magically go away? In the spring and summer. right? So our vitamin D goes back up. So it fluctuates based on our internal vitamin D levels. And vitamin D is not a vitamin. It's actually a hormone. It's considered a prohormone, so it's a precursor hormone to all of your sex hormones, testosterone, estrogen. It helps you make cholesterol, and it's a major player in your immune system. And then the sun causes skin cancer. Raise your hand if you've heard that one. Half the room's probably ready to leave at this point because we've been told ad nauseum that you got to stay out of the sun, you got to put all the sunscreens on your skin. If that were true, if the sun were the cause of skin cancer, it would be on the tip of your nose, on your forehead, and on the backs of your hands. But there's a thing called anal melanoma. You ever heard of that one? That kills about 400 people a year. So either it's happening where the sun don't shine, or they're getting sun exposure in a very unique way. I'm not sure which. My grandfather had melanoma. He had it on the back of his knee. And he's like, well, that's from riding my riding lawnmower. I was like, really? Are you laying face down on the mower? Like, how is the back of your knee getting excess sun exposure? Now, you don't want to burn the skin. Like, that's not wise. You can create damage and dysplasia if you overburn the skin. Nobody's arguing that. But the cultures that get the most sun have the least amount of skin cancer. So it's not the sun. It's what your skin is your biggest organ. So it's what we're doing internally. Then the sun expresses on our skin. It's not the sun. It's what's happening internally inside of our body. The ideal blood level for vitamin D is between 60 and 90. So if you go to your doctor and you get your blood tested, do you guys go to doctors that routinely test your vitamin D? Hopefully, at this stage in the game, every doctor knows enough to routinely check your vitamin D levels. If they do not, then I would find another doctor because they are not even remotely up to date in the last 20 years of research if they're not routinely checking your vitamin D levels. Now, the blood level for vitamin D, the range is between 30 and 100. So they tell you as long as you're above 30, you're fine. 30 is the cutoff for rickets. You ever heard of rickets? It means you're so deficient that your bones get soft, you get bow-legged. Not many people walking around like that. But low levels of vitamin D are linked to about 6 different cancers, cardiovascular disease, type 2 diabetes, pneumonia, infections. It's linked to almost all of those things. So we want to get your blood level between 60 and 90. That's the ideal. So get your blood level between 60 and 90, and it's about 4.5 times more effective than a flu shot by getting your vitamin D level above 60. Rates of cancer, heart disease, colds and flus, COVID, which we'll talk about here. This is a graph from the COVID pandemic. So they looked at people's vitamin D levels. So the red would be less than 20, which is extremely low. 20 to 21 to 29 is still really, really low. And then green are people that are above 30. And remember, 30 is just the cutoff for rickets. It's not even a good adequate level. So the people that were critical cases of COVID, that's the N48 on the far left, the vast majority of those had less than 20 or between 21 and 29. Same with severe. But then when you start up in the vitamin D level, you start seeing improvements in people that had very, very mild symptoms with COVID. They had adequate or what's considered adequate levels of vitamin D. They did a study in South Korea where they found that 98% of people that either died or were hospitalized had critically low levels of vitamin D. So we could have massively impacted this entire pandemic just by giving them pennies a day vitamin D supplements. It could have been so easy, but there's no money to be made for that. So oxygen lean muscle, have you guys ever done box breathing? You ever heard of box breathing? Most of us go through an entire day or week and we never actually breathe. So with box breathing, you want to inhale. You want to inhale for 4 seconds. Everybody do this right now. So when it gets back to this inhale corner, you're going to take 4 seconds to do an inhale. Ready, go. Then you hold it for 4 seconds. And then you blow out slowly over 4 seconds. Then you hold. We're going to spread COVID all over this place. But that is a neurological reset, so it stimulates the parasympathetic part of the nervous system, which slows you down and kind of rests and repairs, and it allows you to fully oxygenate your body. The presence of oxygen is the absence of disease. So cancer can't survive in a fully oxygenated environment. You're healthier when you're getting more oxygen deeper into your tissues. This is Joan McDonald. Anyone ever heard of Joan? Joan, Train with Joan is her Instagram page. So at age 70, she was pre-diabetic. She had high blood pressure, high cholesterol, and she was acid reflux. So her daughter came to her, tears in her eyes, said, "Mom, I don't want to lose you, so please make some changes. Please change your life, please." So she got inspired, and then about 2.5 years later, that's Joan. She'd never worked out a day in her life, never lifted a weight. She'd never done any kind of exercise for the first 70 years. And in 2.5 years, look at the outcome. Look at the rear end on her, right? The triceps. It's unbelievable. And starting at age 70. Like that, so people say, well, you know, I can't do it. I've never worked out. I've never done anything. If your why is big enough, the how will take care of itself. Nietzsche said, with a big enough why, we can accomplish any how. And for her big why was, it's my mission to inspire and uplift as many people as I can. Because when people are getting motivated to get healthier, it's usually not just because they want to lose weight or feel better or look better at the wedding or in the bathing suit. They do it because it's going to affect my grandkids. I won't get to see my grandkids grow up. I won't get to walk my daughter down the aisle, or I won't get to travel or do things with my husband. So identify your big why, and we can walk you through that. And then what we recommend is start where you're at. So if you're currently doing no exercise, then do 1,000 steps a day. And if you're already walking, then up it to 10,000 a day. If you're already doing 10,000, then start doing some stretchy bands or a yoga class or Pilates or some water aerobics, and just slowly ramp up to where eventually we all need to be doing some sort of resistance. Muscle is the key to healthy longevity. And you don't have to be a bodybuilder, but you have to maintain muscle, because every year we lose about 2% of our muscle mass just with the natural process of aging, which leads to frailty and falls and osteoporosis and lower cardiovascular function. Just everything goes downhill when your muscle mass goes down. So we do some other testing. This is our Genova testing. This is Nike. Raise your hand. This is Nike. She'll handle all this for us. But it looks at 5 different biomarkers, from oxidative stress, which is how well you're doing from an antioxidant status, and then your mitochondrial health, which is where you get energy, your omega-3 balance, your exposure to toxins, and then your need for methylation support. And then when we look at the typical blood test, like when you guys go to your physical and you get your CBC and your metabolic panel and your lipids done, they're testing 19 different biomarkers. That's it. This test is measuring over 100. So, because we've all heard, like, you know, Joe went to his doctor, said he was healthy as a horse, and he died of a heart attack 2 months later. Like, we've all heard those stories because the traditional blood work doesn't show us our health status. So that's an option. It's a little kit. We test your urine, we test your blood, and we do a genetic cheek swab. Do a little cheek swab, put it in the thing, send it off, and it sends us back that report that gives us an exact, detailed analysis of what your health status is. How you're doing on vitamin A and vitamin C and your B vitamins and your omega-3s, and what toxins are in your body. Do you have lead, arsenic, cadmium, tin, nickel? It kind of shows us exactly where you're at from a health perspective. So here's the blood work that we recommend too. So if you look at these 3 that are starred, those are the ones that you get when you go get your physical. So you go get your physical, they're going to do your metabolic panel, your lipids, and your CBC. And maybe, if you go to a good doctor, they're going to test your vitamin D. So that's 19, maybe 20 different biomarkers. But you also need to know your DHEA, which is the precursor for your testosterone and estrogen, your free and total testosterone, yes, for women too. That's the most abundant sex hormone in a woman's body. You have more testosterone than you have estrogen. Now, you don't have as much as a man does, but in a quantity perspective, we have more testosterone. Women have more testosterone than they do estrogen. And then you have your estradiol or estrogen, your progesterone. Progesterone is your natural Valium. That's why when you guys go through menopause, your progesterone levels start to tank pretty quickly, and then anxiety and depression and all the other symptoms that come with that. So progesterone is kind of your natural Valium. There was a women's health initiative that was done in the late 1990s where they said hormone replacement for women increased rates of breast cancer. Well, we found out about 3 years ago that data was completely fraudulent. They probably did more damage to women's health by scaring them away from bioidentical hormone replacement than anything that's been done in the last 50 years. Because they convinced them if they took those hormones, then they're going to get cancer. And they actually are seeing an inverse correlation now, where if you keep your hormones optimized, you have lower rates of not only breast cancer, but others too. Thyroid hormones, TSH, free T3, like if you get a thyroid panel, some people have thyroid issues, they'll check your TSH, which your thyroid only makes 20% of your thyroid hormone. The rest of it comes from your kidneys and your liver and your brain. So when they're looking at that one little number, they're not looking at the full picture. Free T3 and 4 and reverse T3. Stress hormones like cortisol, that's a stress hormone, but it's also very productive too. So when you get up in the morning, your stress hormones, your cortisol will skyrocket to get you up out of bed and get you moving, but then it should kind of taper off throughout the day. Most people get a little spike in the morning, and then at night it starts to ramp up. So then they lay in bed and stare at the ceiling, can't turn their brain off, have to stare at the TV to go to sleep. Like that, it creates an issue with sleep cycles and energy levels. Insulin resistance, probably the most important test you can get on this list, in my opinion, for most people, is a fasting insulin. Raise your hand if you ever had a fasting insulin done. Great. There are some docs that'll do that. Fantastic. That number should be below 5. So they tell you as long as you're below 25, you're fine. Just like your A1C. As long as you're not above 5.7, you're fine. That's not true. Come back when you're above 5.7, then we'll put you on the diabetes medication. Why don't we intervene earlier with things that are not pharmaceutical and actually fix the problem versus waiting till people get sick and need medications? Ferritin's your stored iron. Hemoglobin A1C, that's your 90-day average of all your blood glucose, your blood sugars. Much better marker than just fasting insulin. And then you got your other panels, vitamin D, and then CRP or C-reactive protein. Highly recommend everybody get that one done. That is an indicator of inflammatory status. So if your CRP gets above 1.0, then you're dealing with systemic inflammation. But most people never had that test done. Has anyone ever had a CRP done? Few? 2, 3 in the room. Right. What's that? SED rate is more, that's an inflammatory, your ESR, but it's more, it has to be there for a lot longer. It's usually related to infection, but that's another inflammatory marker. So is homocysteine. So lastly is the emotions, mindset, and spiritual health. And I'm by no means a spiritual counselor or a psychologist or any of that, but what I wanted to share with you guys are some things that have always worked for me. And this may not apply to you, but these are, I think they're universal, simple truths, things that apply to everybody and become almost like a tagline. Again, start where you are. So wherever you're at in your health, we want to improve your health journey. Start where you're at and just slowly, steadily start making some improvements, whether that's exercise or taking the right supplements or starting with the right blood work, detox. It takes a lifetime to learn how to live. Raise your hand if you like that. I don't like that at all. I remember my daughter, this was years ago, she said, "Daddy, why do you always get so upset?" I can't remember what it was about. And I said, "Honey, it's my first time ever being a dad." And she was like, "Oh, okay." She kind of got that. Like, it's my first time being 47. I've never done this before. It takes a lifetime to learn how to live. And you don't know if you did a good job until you're dead. So it takes a lifetime to learn how to live. We're all in process. We don't know if we did a good job until we're dead. We're all giraffes running on ice. Clumsy, moving in a direction, but it's not pretty. You don't have to be perfect, which we'll talk about. God gives us one day at a time. We cannot change the past. We can't control tomorrow, so just go ahead and live today. We get one day at a time, and when in the times of my life I've been able to slow things down and to just do what's in front of me, be where my feet are, then my life has gotten so much more peaceful. Because we freak out about the future, we're depressed about the past, but if we just live today, it slows everything down. Progress, not perfection. Perfection is the enemy of progress. So it's again, it's not about doing anything perfect. We use perfection as a way of giving ourselves an out. I'm gonna eat a pizza and drink a beer on Fridays. So why would I eat a salad on Tuesday? If I can't be perfect, why even try? Like, that's ridiculous. We didn't do that with any other part of our life. Like, why go to church if you can't be Jesus? Or why have children if you can't be a perfect parent? Like, we don't apply that to any other part of our life, but with our nutrition and our food and our lifestyles, we somehow say if we can't do it perfectly, then it's just not even worth the endeavor. But it's progress, not perfection. You are the CEO of your own health. We are just consultants. You have to know the quarterly reports and the blood lab numbers and the statistics. You got to know exactly where your health status is, and then you got to have people along the way that can help you and kind of guide you and give you tips and tricks. But at the end of the day, our health is our own. We have to take ownership. A healthy man has 1,000 wishes and a sick man has one. That is so true. When my wife was bedridden for 2.5 years, I could tell you I didn't care about the football game or the car I was driving or the watch I was wearing. The only thing we cared about was her health. And when you lose your health, nothing else really matters. Like when you're sick, when you've had the flu, what's the only thing you care about? I just want to feel better. Like you're not worried about the stock market or the election. You're just worried about feeling better because when you lose your health, it trumps all of your other priorities. Health equals wealth. Our greatest investment, our greatest asset is in our health. If we lose our health, not only is it the #1 cause of bankruptcy in the United States, 68% of bankruptcies happen because of unpaid medical bills. It's astonishing. 68% in America, 68% of bankruptcies happen because of unpaid medical bills. And over half of those people that filed bankruptcy had full medical benefits. They had Blue Cross, they had Medicare, and they still had to file bankruptcy. So your health is your greatest asset. Discipline beats motivation. I'm not a fan of motivation because it ebbs and flows. Discipline beats motivation every day of the week. If you're disciplined, make some changes, do the work, then you'll get the results and you don't have to worry about being motivated. Live an RE life. I think if we're kind of like a pitcher. If we're gonna pour out, we have to refill, we have to relive, and we have to rejoice, and we have to recover, and we have to remember. To be remembered means to be brought back together. So we have to work to live an RE life because we have to fill back up if we're gonna give out. You can't give what you don't have. So if you're not taking time to fill yourself back up, we're stealing from our kids and from our grandkids and from our employers and everyone else. If you're gonna be healthy at 80, you better kick butt at 60. So dementia, Alzheimer's and dementia at 90 started at 60. Heart attacks and heart disease at 60 started at 30. Diabetes at 50 started at 20. So we have to, and that doesn't mean if you're 50, 60, 70, or 80, it's past that point, but we gotta realize that we gotta do things now to ensure a healthier future tomorrow. Aging is the aggressive pursuit of comfort. I love this one. It's the aggressive pursuit of comfort. As we aggressively pursue more and more comfort, we age at a much faster rate. There's a great book called The Comfort Crisis by Dr. Michael Easter. Highly recommend you read that. But in his book, he states that we are hunter-gatherers. We're designed to sleep in a cave, hunt for our food, kill it, prepare it, and then move on to the next day. But we wake up in our nice warm bed, get our warm shower, drink our nice warm cup of coffee, and then we drive in our air-conditioned car to our air-conditioned office, and we eat our Happy Meal, and then we drive home, and then we eat our bowl of pasta and stare at Netflix all night. Very rarely in a given day do we sweat, do we exert, do we get cold, do we get hot, do we get hungry, do we get thirsty? We're never uncomfortable. So then the minute someone says something we don't like to hear, we just, like we fold like a wet blanket. So like in the mornings when I get up and do my morning time, and then I do my stretching, foam rolling, I do my workout, and then I sit in that ridiculous sauna for 25 minutes and sweat my face off, and then I take a cold shower for 2 minutes. Guess how much I care if someone cuts me off in traffic? Like, go on, like who cares, right? So you want to pursue things that are difficult and are uncomfortable that improve your health so the rest of the day goes so much smoother. That's one of the main benefits of exercise is you get out that exertion, you increase endorphins, and then your day-to-day goes so much smoother. Muscle mass, like we said, is the key to healthy longevity. The more muscle mass you maintain, the healthier you'll be long-term. They did a study with senior citizens in a nursing home. They had to be over 90 90 years old and over to participate and to qualify. And every single one of those over 6 weeks improved their muscle mass, they reduced their fat loss, they increased their mobility, they put them through like a strength training program, a little bit of dietary modification. But everybody over the age of 90 got healthier and built more muscle when they implemented the right strategies. So at any age, this can be pulled off. If it's made in a plant, avoid it. And if it eats plants, or if it is a plant, then eat it. I know we get into lectins and there's other nuance, but in reality, it's just going back to eating God food that's made for our bodies. Eat to live, don't live to eat. And then eat based on how you feel after the meal, not during it. Like I've never eaten like a steak and a salad and been like, oh man, I should have never eaten that. But if I eat a cheeseburger, fries, and a milkshake, I'm like, oh, dude, tastes great going down, but you feel miserable for 3 hours. So eat based on how you feel after the meal, not during the meal. We're so addicted to this instant gratification, this mouth pleasure that we feel like we have to have. It's the only luxury in life that we have, but it's really destroying our health in a lot of cases. Supplement for deficiency. There is no benefit to taking a supplement that you already have a sufficient supply of. You get no benefit. If you've got an adequate supply of magnesium, you get no benefit in taking more magnesium. And then do you know what the most important supplement is to your body? Maybe. It's the one that you're lacking. So the most important nutrient to your body is the one that you need that you're not getting enough of. And that could be vitamin D, that could be protein, that could be sunshine, that could be connection with friends, spiritual. Like whatever you're needing but aren't getting is the most important nutrient to your human body. Test, don't guess. That's why we do the testing. So we're not just kind of throwing stuff against the wall. We want to figure out exactly what your body needs. And then people say, what about the kids? So we can never ask our kids to do something that we're not willing to do. And we can never ask our kids to stop doing something we're currently doing. So we have to be the role model. Like you can't ask them to do something you do all the time and ask them to stop doing something that you do all the time. Like we got to be congruent with that. And the other thing with kids, like I hear it all the time, like, no, Timmy, don't give that soda and chips to the dog. That'll make him sick. That's for you and your friends, right? To the point that we laugh about that, right? The other thing with kids is beat the crap out of them every day. Every day, I've got a 3-year-old son, I've got a 17-year-old daughter and a 3-year-old son, so keep us in your prayers. But with my 3-year-old, I come home from lunch, and then he is ready to go. So we wrestle, and I'll throw him on the couch. He jumps on my back and flips him around. Like he absolutely loves it. There's nothing else on this planet that he likes more than just wrestling, and I let him win like 20% of the time. So he likes that too. But those movement pleasure pathways that get activated with that activity, the increase in oxytocin and serotonin, all those bonding chemicals, you can't get that from anything else. So even if you're older, you got to get in the floor and just wrestle around with them. Kids absolutely love it, and it benefits you tremendously. We all have a health savings account, so everything we're doing is either a credit or a debit. You're either debiting from that health account if you're eating the cheeseburger and fries, or you're adding to it when you're eating the grass-fed beef and the broccoli. So exercise, no exercise, morning time, no morning time, you're either adding to or subtracting from your health savings account. Love the process. It's love the process and not the result. If the only thing you're in it for is just the result and just, I want to lose the 20 pounds or I want to get to this certain metric, then it's going to be short term. You have to learn to love the process. And the people that we see, the patterns of people that we see that do this long term and can sustain it are the ones that fall in love with the process. Like I couldn't imagine not being able to exercise. Like it's just a part of my life. And I skip a few days, I feel terrible. Like, because I love the process. I don't like the way it feels. I've regretted one workout. When I tore my pec, I regret that one. Probably should have stayed home that day. But other than that, I've never done a workout and been like, man, I should have never done that. Like you always feel better. You always eat a good meal, you always feel better. Like your body always does the right thing when we give it the right process. Forget happiness, seek joy. Happiness is based on happenstance. So if external factors in my life happen the way that I like, then I'm happy. And if things happen that I don't like, then my happiness goes down. So my happiness goes up and down based on what happens to my life and what happens during my day. So it's more fluid that way. Instead, seek joy. Joy is an underlying sense of gratitude and peace. Do you know what joy always has with it? Always, 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 always. It always has sadness with it. Because anytime you have joy, you're gonna have a little bit of sadness. Because what did it take to get there? How long is it gonna last? Who else is not with me in this? Like there's always some sadness that's involved in every time we experience joy. But the better we get good, the more we get good at doing the feelings that we don't like the better we get good at dealing with hurt and fear and sadness and anger and loneliness, the more joy that we're gonna have, guaranteed. Fix you first. So I work to clean my side of the street, and this is mostly in relationships. I love to peek over that guardrail at my wife's side of the street and tell her what she's doing wrong and what she needs to do better, and that works amazingly in a marriage, let me tell you. But if I stay on my side of the street and just clean up my side and quit peeking over the guardrail, everything goes so much better. Because looking over on someone else's side of the street leads to a thing called resentment. You ever heard of resentment? That's drinking poison hoping that it kills the other person, right? That's resentment, and it is epidemic in this culture. So stay on our side of the street, clean up our emotional health, own your emotions, they're yours. People say all the time, like, you make me so angry, or you make me so this, or you make me so upset. No one can make you angry. You realize that? No one can make you have an emotion. Like, no one can make you, I can't make you pee, I can't make you sweat, I can't make your heart beat. Like, now you can have reactions to things I do and say to you that you'll have emotions based off of, but they're yours. So we have to learn to own our own internal experience. When we abdicate our internal experience to people around us, we lose our agency, we lose our power, and then it's a thing called codependency, where I'm okay if you're okay. If you're not okay, I'm not okay. And that is the recipe for disaster. How plus God minus ego equals joy. That's the formula. If you want joy, how, which is honesty, openness, and willingness. So be honest about where you're at, be open to change, and be willing to do the work. Plus God, which is God, or good, orderly direction. So honesty, openness, willingness, and good, orderly direction minus ego, which is easing God out, by the way, equals joy. So that's the formula. And I try to work that every day in my life, and I fail every single day. But the more I'm able to be open to other people's opinions and their feedback and be open to God and get my ego out of the equation, the more joyful I'll be. And then lastly is that kindness and gratitude always win. Always, 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 always. We have so much to be grateful for in this life. If you have a roof over your head and you have running water, you're in the top 1% of human beings on planet Earth. There's so many. If you have trouble finding gratitude, just realize there's 1 million families in Egypt that are raising their families on a trash heap. Every single day, they raise their children on a trash pile, and we're worried about my internet being slow or somebody cut me off in traffic. So just doing a gratitude journal, realizing that being kind to other people and having gratitude is always a win. So that's it, guys. So now we got a choice. You got a choice. You've heard some information. We'll stick around and do some Q&A, but you've got a choice to either take everything you learned today and then do absolutely nothing with it, and you just wasted 2 hours. Or you could take 1 or 2 or 5 things and implement that into your life and actually get to change your health and change your future. I've got the best job, by far I've got the best job on the planet. I get to work with people that I love and that love the Lord and love each other, care about people. Like, I've got the best staff and the best place on the planet. The other part of that is I get to work in a place where I get to see people get their lives back. They lose weight, they get out of pain, they get off medications, they avoid surgeries, all because they took control and they took action. They say knowledge is power. I disagree. Knowledge is not powerful. You got all the knowledge you could ever imagine in that little cell phone in your pocket. Knowledge is not powerful. It's the application and the action we take with the knowledge that matters. So the question is, what will you do with it? So thank you, guys, and God bless. So see the snacks there. We got Tommy, personal trainer. We got Coach Jessica, Chiro Thin. Tommy's an amazing personal trainer, by the way. So if you guys need personal training help, And then we got Nike for the blood work and Suzanne for everything else. Yes, Al?
So, vitamin D level
Mm-hmm.
is, so there is no kind of dosage, daily dosage, it's all depending on what level.
That's a great question. It depends on where you're starting from. And then it usually takes about a year and a half or so for most people to figure out what their dose needs to be. So if you're critically low, like let's say you're at 25, I would have you take 50,000 a day for a month and then retest. See how quickly we could get you up into that normal range and then kind of dose. Like with me now, I've done it, tested it enough to where between October and March, I'll take about 10,000 units a day between October and March, and then I don't really supplement in the spring and summer because I'm outside, and you need trunk exposure. So that arm out the window while you're driving is very little impact on your vitamin D. You gotta have trunk. So you gotta be in your bathing suit for 20 minutes every day between 11 a.m. and 1 p.m. Take pictures. I wanna see. That's the ideal. Yes, ma'am.
What's the difference between HCG and your weight?
Yeah. So HCG is a pregnancy mimicking hormone. So this doesn't contain any of that. So it's got like B vitamins and amino acids. It's got kind of proprietary herbs and vitamin amino acid formula. And it helps to train the metabolism to stay elevated after those 2 loading days. So after 2 loading days, you're taking the drops during those 2 loading days. And then on day 3, you're dropping the bottom out of the calories, but then your metabolism stays elevated.
Because that was similar to HCG.
It is. It's just the problem is when you start monkeying with the hormones, when you come off of that program, or your weight.
I did it.
You did?
7 was just COVID.
Yeah, COVID.
And I was sitting, chips.
I get it.
What do you think about AG1? It's a
Sure.
green strain.
Yep.
That's what my breakfast is.
Yeah. We use greens first. I don't think it may not be out there, but it's just a antioxidant protein or a veggie and fruit blend.
Yeah.
Sure. It's not a replacement for a healthy diet, but it's a good add-on.
You know, it's just how I start my day.
Yeah.
The rest of the day, I go to McDonald's.
Well, let's start there. Yeah, no, those are fine. Again, supplements are never a replacement for healthy food. They're just a supplement, as they should be.